Grace and peace. I'm Brian Musser. I'm the Baptist campus minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Bible Study, the peace of Jesus Christ to change your life, the power of the Holy Spirit to change the world. And we have been working through this term on our lessons about the gospel, the good news. The gospel is good news for every person and every part of life. We examine that every part of life by looking at these 5 life areas earlier: relationships, lifestyle, purpose, belonging, and beliefs, and how those encompass most all of life and how the gospel applies to each and every one of them. You can check out those previous videos either on my YouTube channel or on my WordPress blog. All that stuff is there, and there'll be links either in the description or in this blog to send you that way. Then we also looked at how salvation, how the gospel justifies us and we are saved from the penalty of sin, is continuing to save us, which would be sanctification from the power of sin, and someday we will be saved from the presence of sin, glorification. So as you're talking about your life, and these ideas will come important this week, but as you're talking about your life, you can also, every part of life, divide it into these 3 categories: how the gospel affected your past, how the gospel is changing you now, and what does the gospel give you a hope for in the future. And then recently we've been talking about the big story, and we've been talking about missions and the entire world, and how the gospel has this huge story that affects all the earth through creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. So as we look at the gospel story, we see that it affects every part of our life and it affects every person in the world, which is interesting. And this is something I want you to consider. This question will open us up for what we want to talk about this week. Are you normal? Now, if you are a Christian watching this post, thinking about how to share the gospel, I run in a lot of times where we think we're abnormal. We think we're strange. We think we're different. We think that the rest of the world doesn't think like us, um, which is different than what I want us to get to at this time. I want you to understand that the reasons why you chose to become a Christian, the reasons why you have found the story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection meaningful, the reasons why you choose to follow Christ every day are probably perfectly normal and completely human reasons. Now, there are over 1 billion Christians in this world, maybe even close to 2 billion. Human beings who have found in some way or another the story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection to be meaningful for them. That makes this Christian story a common human experience. Ideas of guilt and shame, ideas of hope and trust, ideas of all these human emotions that were wrapped up in your Christian story are perfectly normal human experiences. Forgiveness, doubt, peace, questions, sin, grace, mercy, hope. These words are meaningful words to just about every human being out there. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is a common human need and understanding. So I want you to think through this. The reasons why you have decided to follow Jesus and continue to follow Jesus are exactly why others will decide to follow Jesus. So telling your story around the gospel will be important for others to hear so they can find out how your story and their story intersects in a way that the gospel makes sense to them, maybe in a way that it has never made sense to them before. To highlight this, let's look just broad overview at the book of Acts. Acts is general kind of outline is the gospel starts in Jerusalem and goes to the ends of the earth, which is signified by the gospel and Paul reaching Rome. And from Rome, the entire known world through the Roman Empire was accessible from that point on. So, and it's taking the gospel from a small 140 people in an upper room through Pentecost, through the Samaria, through Judea, and all the way to the ends of the earth through Paul's missionary journeys throughout and other sorts of stories along those natures. And it's this big picture of the gospel going to the entire world, crossing ethnic lines, crossing national boundaries, crossing all sorts of other hurdles on its way there. But in that 28 chapter story, that is a huge, grand story, the author, Luke, takes 3 moments to specifically focus down on one person's life. And that's not the gospel going to the whole world. 3 times, Luke focuses on the gospel coming to this specific individual named Paul. Paul's conversion is told once in narrative form in Acts 9, and then is told through Paul's testimony in court cases in Acts 22 and Acts 26. So I just want to highlight how important the testimony of one individual and how the gospel has hit one person's life is to the overall plot and theme of the book of Acts, that it shows up 3 times in extended narratives for 70 different verses of this entire book. So the story of the gospel encountering one person has always been an important driving factor in how the story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection has encountered the world. Learn to tell your story. Learn to tell it well. We're going to look at Paul's story. We're going to look at the Acts 26 version of it. We're going to look at it in 3 sections, 1 through 11, 12 through 18, and 19 through 32. And this story is going to be broken down into, and we're going to use this as a model for how to tell our story. Your life before Jesus, becoming a Christian, and your life with Jesus. Now, I'm going to break that down and look at those passages a little bit later in each of the different videos we have for this week. So continue to join me, and hopefully we'll have that discussion moving forward. As always, there are 2 ways to join: live Monday nights, 7 p.m. via Zoom, and these weekly wrap-ups, which are posted YouTube and WordPress. Those details are in the links in the bottom. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, follow me on all sorts of social media, follow on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, friend me on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn, WordPress, YouTube are all there as well. I hope this was a good introductory conversation, and I hope to continue it real soon.